Hello and welcome. I'm Qualification. This is Shadow Empire, a game I've been looking forward to doing a Let's Play of. It just came out today, June 4th, 2020. And in this game, we're going to be doing a scenario that I think is going to show off a lot of what this has to offer, and hopefully some of you might enjoy it. I think I'm turning the music down a little bit more. It's actually still kind of loud even at that level. There we go. So Shadow Empire is a wargame, political simulator, post-apocalyptic sci-fi game. There's a lot of elements to it, obviously. So these are... The way we play this game is we generate a planet, and eventually we will make our civilization, and then our civilization is going to try to take over the planet. So Shadow Empire takes place in a far human future after much of the galaxy has been colonized, and there used to be a government. I think it was from Earth, and I think they're called the Galactic Confederation or something, or Galactic Republic. That's right. They have fallen apart. And they fell apart, I think, hundreds of years ago by the frame of this game. And so this is the post-apocalyptic remnants of one of their colony planets trying to restore civilization. And so we start basically no better than like a Fallout Raider group, pretty much, in terms of our technology. And then over time, we will become more and more civilized and technologically adept, until we eventually dominate the planet. So, to play this game, you first have to generate the planet and several of its characteristics. For this game, I'm thinking we're just going to do an Earth-like planet. I'll go over each of these, though, briefly. So this is a random planet, unclassified. There's the Seth planet, which is just like a big desert with no water. The Boreas planet is basically the same as the Seth, but they have polar caps, so they have some water. Limos is a desert with oasis, essentially. Cerberus is a lava world. Medusa is a planet that has alien life forms on it. Planetoids are just smaller than normal planets, and moons are moons. And then the one we're going to play is called a Siwa, which is a planet similar to Earth, but with less liquid water. So basically, this is going to show us a planet that's going to have a lot of the same sort of biomes and ecosystems that you'd expect on Earth. The reason I'm going to pick this one and not one of the other ones is that I think that because this is my first game, also, of this. So I'm thinking that this is going to be better to learn with. Basically an Earth-like planet with Earth-like features. We won't have to deal with, hopefully at least, atmospheric toxicity or ambient radiation. We might still have some radiation from the apocalypse that happens, but at least it should be safe to grow food and breathe, which is going to be good. So this is the generation settings. We're going to do detailed fog of war. The settings here basically mean complete means it'll just be black like this the entire time. We have no idea what we're getting into. We're going to use complete after colonization. This is basically going to be black like this once we start the game, but we'll be able to see what the world looks like during generation, so we know if it's worth it. No map is essentially, you can see the whole map. You know what the planet looks like, but you don't have vision except for where your units are. And then partial is, I think that's just you have limited fog of war as a total phenomenon. It's only going to be one human player. Looks like they're up to 4 players now, and they do have the play by email ability. Number of initial zones. This is basically how big you're going to be when you start. We're going to be a city-state. Number of initial armies. You can choose between just having a militia, which is separate from the normal standing army, having 1 army per zone or 2 armies per zone. So this is the kind of speed-up expansion in the pace of the game. We're just going to go with militia. Story modules. So these are all features that will each sort of complicate the game in one way or another. You have different elements that you're trying to control and keep in balance with each other. By default, you have several of them in the militia, which is a separate entity. Each one of these will add like criminal syndicates, corporations, and then the cult will also be elements that you'd have to deal with. I'm going to turn these off for this game. Tech level 3 is the unknown techs, basically, that we will have to research. I think tech level 1 is just like Neolithic technologies, and tech level 2 is basically like your basic of manufacturing and industry and automobiles and that kind of thing. And so tech level 3 is going to be where we start to actually be civilized. Like the previous two are basically just scavenging and whatnot. Development speed, we'll leave that on normal. That's just going to determine the research rate, and it should be fine. Organization level. So one of the features of this game that's to do with the political aspect is that you have these councils that determine various components of your government. By default, you will only have the Supreme Command Council, which is essentially your ruler and their secretary. And then over time, you'll be able to add councils. I think one of the important parts of gameplay is to actually decide what councils you want when and to research and unlock them. So we're going to leave that on Supreme Command Council. I could see if you're doing a kind of multiplayer brawl having these enabled, at least to some degree, because then players can kind of get out of the explore phase of the game and straight into the expansion. Difficulty level, we're going to put it on regular at least. I mean, I am a beginner to this game, but I don't really... My estimation is that this will give me bonuses, and then these will give me penalties and give the AI bonuses, and hopefully this is just equal. I don't know if that's true or not, but... epochs, these are... every set number of turns, there's a new epoch that comes into play, and it has different effect. Could give you a bonus, could give you a penalty. Anyway, so that's our generation settings. We have Planetology. This is basically the solar position of the world. And if I minimize this here, we can see that currently, it's just all sand because we haven't done the geology yet. Where is it? How do I pull that back up, actually? There we go, random. Okay. So this is a very close to Earth, around a bright star. Average temperature of 40 degrees Celsius, 1/3 Earth's gravity. A little bit younger than Earth, and then this is the size of the map. It's actually, it's a very, I think it's a good planet. I think we might go for this. Just because it seems to have a lot of the same. It's a little bit more eccentric tilt than Earth. I think it's a little bit smaller too. Yeah, it's definitely smaller than Earth. It's got a lot lower gravity. 40 degrees Celsius. I don't know. I'm a Fahrenheit person. I think that's like warm, but yeah, I don't know. So we'll continue. That's fine. Now it's going to give us our geology. So this will turn into like, planetary features that... Okay, here we go. So let's minimize that again. And so this planet, these are the tile numbers. Just to let you know which tile is which. That's basically useful for multiplayer, kind of like Dominions. So this planet has a lot of mountains, and it's got like very small like inland seas. It's a little too mountainous for my taste. If we actually open up this menu here, you can see more details. 33% mountainous, 58% plains, 9% oceans. I'm not sure if this is a lot of rain or a little rain. Real but modest atmosphere, highest mountain, deepest seafloor, planet is still geologically active. Then these are the seasons. So then we have essentially Earth-like seasons on this world, except that we have basically a longer spring and longer fall, it looks like. And, okay, so we'll... I think we're going to re-roll that. I don't want this many mountains, so let's go ahead and re-roll. Also, it was just sort of an awkward thing. Okay, that's a lower number of mountains. This might be better. Let's take a look at it. Oof, these mountains are, like, actually walls. The thing about mountains is they are very expensive to move through. So they're kind of natural barriers to your expansion. So if we were to get slapped into a spot like here, right, then we'd be okay. But if we got put in here, then we can only go like out here or maybe there. It kind of really limits what we're able to do. And then if we were to get trapped in a corner or something, that would be very unfortunate. I think I might reroll one more time. We'll just see if the next one has like a similar or less ratio of mountains, we'll keep it. I'll reroll again if it's higher than that percentage of mountains. I'm looking for like 10%, 10 to 15%. Oh, 7%. Okay, this might be better. Let's take a look. So there's very few mountain ranges on this world. A lot of big oceans. Now, currently in the game, there's no naval component, so oceans are just like mountains. They're a physical barrier, essentially. Except you actually can't cross these ones. You can cross the mountains, it's just expensive, but the oceans you can't. This might be okay. Now it looks all empty and barren at the moment. That's because we haven't generated the biosphere yet. There will be grass and whatnot that pops up on the planet soon. I might actually just reroll one more time here. Looking for just a little bit more mountains than that. 24% again. We might accept this. Very limited water, which is fine. I mean, this is basically fine. There's like one central mountain range that kind of divides the east-west sides of the planet. Then there's that little hook. But other than that, there's not really that much to worry about. Also, most of these are hills. These are actually mountains here. I don't think there's any escarpments we'd have to worry about, really. So, let's go with that. Now let's take a look at the seasons. So we have winter, early spring, late spring, summer, early fall, and late fall. And these are the three poles that we're dealing with: Arctic, Antarctic, and Tropic. Now, because of the eccentricity of our tilt, the Antarctic is actually pretty different than the Arctic is. We'd probably be between these two, I'm guessing, is the average. So we're looking, that's I think really hot in the tropics, which is to be expected, really. But let's just check this. It is still geologically active, and yeah, I think we're good. A lot less rainfall than the other one was, but let's go with that. Now the biosphere. 2,747 million years ago, this planet started the process of abiogenesis. Currently, the planet has complex life forms with skeletons. Types of species include protocellular organisms, bacteria, algae, seaweed, sponge analog, coral analog, worm analog, moss, crustacean, protovascular plants, vascular plants, and Atlantean plants. So it is breathable, no xenobiological hazard, farmable. There is no alien nutrition, and it has forests. Let's take a look at this. So we can see there's like some belts of big deserts. I'm assuming this is because it's really hot here. There's also pretty low rainfall on our planet, but we do have big forests too. I'm kind of liking this, actually. Then we have this massive forest down here around these inland. Well, I guess these aren't really inland seas. These are just the seas of the planet, the oceans of this world. I think we'll go with this. So we have some like really huge desert lands to worry about. If we actually spawn in them, that would be kind of good, because then we could get all this territory very quickly. The movement cost to move through deserts is pretty low. The only thing would be that we'd have to find water, and we wouldn't be able to farm in the open probably on the desert. But there are belts of green to work with as well. Anyway, we'll go with that for our biosphere. Oh, that's right. We had a large land-dwelling herbivore. We'll be able to see that again later. Colonization. Lycoris Geminio was that's their name of our planet. It was colonized in the year 7470. It received colonists for 535 years. So its population is only 60 million. This is before the apocalypse as well, which is very low. Almost all of it's agriculture with some service and mining. 34 zones. Then we can see a history of the planet, starting with it being colonized. And then the most recent thing being that the mining ministry left the planet. They were here for about 100 years. I think we might re-roll. I'd like to get a higher population than 59 million. That's just a little low. This planet may not be able to support that many people because of its size and low gravity and whatnot. Okay, this is better. 231 million. This is going to be pre-apocalypse, though. This number is going to go down a lot. So, Lazarion 1, 65, 63, 1,500 years of colonists, just about. Settled by desperate farmers. Most recently became a mining hub. And then sector capital. Okay, I think that's cool. Let's go with that. We'll keep that. This isn't too important. Basically what matters there is the population and the zones populated. Alright, so the apocalypse. The Dissolution War. This is the war that destroyed the Galactic Republic. He reached Lazarion I in 7995. War consumed all. Technology fell to barbaric levels and over a century of warfare and collapse. So you can see out of the 290 million, there's only about 3 million survivors from this war. Most of them being hunters. Actually a pretty low portion of raiders, which is good. Some farmers and scavengers. In the early phases of the Dissolution War, the planet remained a haven of peace for a number of decades. The breakdown in interstellar trade, however, eventually caused its economy to fail and the government to fracture. After planetary government had disintegrated, the lawlessness and never-ending small-scale skirmishes and local wars finished what was left of civilization. It is estimated the total loss of life of the Dissolution War and its direct aftermath claimed over 84 million lives. And since then, it's been 275 years. So the actual war and the immediate aftermath killed 84 million of the 200 and something, and obviously we have a lot less than that, so basically civilization has collapsed. And we can look at the history here. So a bunch of companies evacuated from the planet. Neighboring systems started to hamster goods. I'm not really sure what that means. Appearance of pirate fleets. Powerful raider killed all of their enemies in one of the cities there. Out of nowhere, a giant unmanned spaceship crashed in Ladalam. That's interesting. Survivors in Maconis, Adelia, and Zamonis decided to give up the fight against the odds and committed mass suicide. Wow. 3 whole cities. An extremely deadly disease. A network of delayed mega mines detonates for now no apparent reason, hitting more of these zones, and in an abandoned AF complex blows up in Raisoneria due to core overheating. I think AF is one of the energy sources. But yeah, the apocalypse isn't that important. What matters is like the survivors left and the portions. Okay, so this is a breakdown of our planet as a whole. Planet in a slightly eccentric orbit around a bright yellow GO star. We're about a little bit more than 1 AU from the star. And has complex life forms with skeletons, although it doesn't seem to be very evolved compared to like Earth. It's still pretty primitive. Then again, it's only 3.5 billion years old, so it's interesting that it has this much life, I suppose. And there are only 2.61 million survivors, apparently, rather than 3 million they showed us on the other page. Divided over 5 major regimes and 45 minor regimes. So 5 major regimes, these are going to be equivalent to our PC faction. They do all the same things we do. Minor regimes, I don't think they research. They don't really build new divisions very much. They aren't really that interested in expanding. So the majors are the other nation states, and these are just little tiny sort of like city-state type of entities. We can go to the auxiliary info. This will show us the... Interesting, this is the Planetology. So these are different creatures that existed. Then we have the biosphere details. We do have some local trees and animals and so forth. So we have the Maxon tree, which is a lot of biomass. Yeah, significantly more biomass than the other stuff on this planet, I think. Interesting. Anyway, we can take all this. That's fine. Let's start the game. So we're now going to basically set up our nation state. Here we are. So the graphics for this game, not cutting edge, top of the line stuff, but I think they're serviceable. So we can change our regime name here. I'm just going to call it, let's see what I want to call it. Just go Calistan. Let's just call them the Great Leader. And our colors will be, do some like green and darker green, and then we'll change the thing to be blocked. We can pick a different symbol. I think you can customize these. It's kind of fun to do that. So there's our flag. The great cities were destroyed in the Dissolution War. This is like a teacher basically going over the history of our people. The remainders of humanity dispersed into the wastelands, hiding, scavenging, fighting, trying to scrape out a living, trying to survive. The forefathers of our union were among them. Starvation and structural lack of foodstuffs was the biggest enemy. There was less food than people to feed. How did our ancestors manage to avoid chaos and anarchy in their community? So these are those values I mentioned earlier. We're going to have these three are all sort of in conflict with each other. We pick one, and then that's going to be our primary, and basically we're setting up what type of civilization we have. So we could shoot anyone that protests starvation, technological breakthroughs, or sacrifice the old to save the young. The difference between these, enforcement is kind of focused on law and order, policing unrest, and your military growth. Government is... So there's two types of economy in this game. There's the private sector and the public sector, the nationalized businesses. Government is like tech-focused along with the public businesses and the bureaucracy and whatnot. And commerce is about the private sector, which are just the citizens that live in your country and make their own businesses and things. I think we might go for enforcement. Well, I'm actually interested in doing the private sector a little bit. Sacrificing the old to save the young. Sure, we'll do that. And then, upon stability returned, there were those who did better than others. Who were the people that grew richer and more powerful than the masses? So basically, we could go for an authoritarian style regime. The clever ones. We could have the artisans, or we could have nobody, aka we have like a sort of communistic approach. I think we're gonna go for the artisans. Worked hard, supplied goods and services that were needed. That matches up with our commerce focus. At around the time your father was born, a rebellion took place against the leaders and principles of our union. It was a rebellion against the authoritarian and dictatorial leader to get democracy, the corruption and lack of progress, meritocracy, or softness and indecision of the leaders for autocracy. These all have their own merits. None of these are objectively better. I think democracy is a little bit weaker than meritocracy. Autocracy is fine. I think we'll go with a meritocracy, though, to just make our regime very focused on progress and whatnot. So here we are, Calistan. We have suffered no losses. Good, it's round 1. We have 3 decisions and 49 reports. So I'm going to go ahead and end this episode here. We'll pick it up next time with the actual start of the game, and you guys will be able to see what that's like.